Ian Manoli, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. We've talked once before, so this is I'm glad that I'm having a chance to talk with you again. You are Executive Director of PromoLex. So in my research, I'm researching Moldova and Transnistria and some of the unique political, legal aspects of what's going on in the region. Could you give me and potential viewers kind of just the background, a historical background of PromoLex?
We started in 2002 as young lawyers in Moldova, and from 2004 we started to work in Transnistrian region. In 2004, Transnistrian de facto administration tried to close and to force Moldovan schools from this region to close them. We sent petitions to European Court, and from this moment we started to work in Transnistria. A lot of people came to us with different problems, and we were surprised to see that for these people there are no way to defend their rights. No mechanisms, no national or international, efficient, legal and efficient mechanisms and instruments to be used to defend their rights when these rights are violated. At the moment, we have two programs.
Do you mind me just backing up for a second? Because I'm kind of interested in the history of PromoLex. So you said you and a few young lawyers started it?
Yes.
Really just like your friends? And I'm kind of interested in that like how it came together.
Not really. I started alone in the beginning, but when I started to think how to build this organization and how to develop activities, I put the in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, information.
You put like an advertisement.
Advertisement. We look for lawyers, young lawyers,
mm-hmm.
who will be ready to participate in the social life in Moldova and to contribute in the democratization of the country.
Okay.
And a lot of people called, but only 4 of them who are until today in the PromoLex remains.
So there are like kind of 5 of you that have been there since the beginning?
5.
5 of you?
5. Since the beginning. At the moment we are 34.
34?
Yeah.
So you've had
But
success? Or?
Yes, but not all of them are lawyers, because we have 2 programs at the moment.
Mm.
We have human rights program where we litigate cases. We do litigation, strategic litigation,
right.
and advocacy in human rights. And the second program is monitoring of democratic processes in Moldova.
Right. Moving into the programs a little bit, I do know, so you do litigation and advocate for human rights. Is that through international and domestic courts, or do you focus on one specifically?
Yeah, when we speak about litigation, we can say we work in 2 sides, in Transnistria, but also in other regions of Moldova, in this part of Moldova.
So you almost have sub-regional courts, regional courts like in Transnistria, and then you have national courts in Moldova, and then international? Or?
When victims come to us, victims of human rights abuses, when they come to us, we try to understand if we can help them on the local level.
Mm-hmm.
We do this. We help them to defend their rights and solve their problems on the local courts, Transnistrian, illegal or de facto courts.
The system is available.
Yeah, because for us it is important to help people, to help them to solve their problem.
Okay.
But if we see that the problem is not possible to be solved on the local level, we address our petitions to national authorities, constitutional authorities.
Moldovan.
Yes, Moldovan, but many times our authorities deny their responsibility.
Because they recognize Transnistria?
No, because they don't have control on this territory.
Right, okay.
And they link their responsibility for this to political process.
Okay, just to clarify, so I know this is kind of a complicated matter.
Yeah.
So, so when Moldovan's courts, are they recognized by Moldovan? Because it's an autonomous region, and through the definition of that autonomy, are their courts recognized? Are there cases accepted as precedent in the Moldovan judiciary?
No, it's not precedent because
It's civil.
It's not autonomy.
It's not that level of autonomy.
Yes, because Transnistrian de facto authorities, they think and they speak about their independence.
Mm-hmm.
So their courts, so-called courts, are not under the or in the national system of legal system of Moldova.
So when you but when you work within that system, it's all recognized. So if there's a case going through the courts in Transnistria, you can advocate within that court for a client?
Yeah, you can do this and use their local legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay.
and for us, for human rights defenders,
right.
It's important to help people and to solve their problem.
With the resources you have available?
Yes,
okay.
yes. But when we go to national courts and national institutions, we use national and international legislation.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we go also to European Court, because this is the responsibility of national authorities, at least to do something when they know about some problems. So
mm-hmm.
our authorities have positive obligation according to European Court terms.
They receive pressure from European international
any kind,
courts?
Yes, any kind of efforts need from national authorities to help, to defend, to protect, to solve the problems from Transnistrian region, people from Transnistrian region. Even they don't have control on this territory, Moldovan authorities keep this responsibility in front of the people from Transnistrian region.
Okay.
Legally speaking.
All right. So just one clarification question on this, and I'll kind of leave this. This matter. I find this matter, being a student of the law, I find Transnistria a unique case study because of its autonomy. So what is like the major hindrance or blocking factor in why Moldovan authorities can't administer law in Transnistria? Is it so? So they just, Moldovan police do not go into Transnistria. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So Moldova, so they literally.
This is a separatist region,
mm-hmm.
With separatist regime first of all. This regime control this territory, and they don't allow constitutional authorities to come and to exercise some attributions in this territory.
Okay, I know this. I'm kind of feel like I'm being a little redundant, but I just wanted to try to draw out. I haven't been to Transnistria yet, and so I'm planning a trip. But so when I arrive, there's like border guards, right? And
yeah.
So okay.
For Moldovan authorities, it's important to work on international level at the moment. We have 5+2 format, but also all international tribunes which can be used by national authorities.
Mm-hmm.
To speak about this problem and to insist to solve the Transnistrian conflict according to national but also international law.
Okay. So we kind of jumped to focusing really narrowly on Transnistria. If we just back up just a second, I want to try to follow this outline a little bit. So PromoLex kind of has their litigation, which we kind of talked about, that works kind of the international and the domestic, mm-hmm. more domestic and local courts. And election-wise, last week I spoke with Mihai Vescariu. I don't know if you know who he is. He's kind of he works in elections, promoting politicians through, Mihai Vescariu. He kind of just runs campaigns. So we had a really interesting talk about elections the other week. And so I was wondering, so how do you guys engage in elections? Because he's kind of more from the promotion side, which is interesting. And I was like, I've talked to him before about, I know there's laws, election, norms, and it's like when you're promoting somebody, how concerned are you about the legal aspects of, elections and stuff, and he's like, you know, and but now speaking with you, you'd be more from the legal side, you know, monitoring ethics probably in certain, you know, processes and.
No. From 2009, we started to monitor elections,
Okay.
and we started also with Transnistrian region.
You started in the Transnistrian region?
Yes, kind of. We can say this because in 2009 we covered only Transnistrian segment, and we tried at that moment to monitor the situation, how people from Transnistrian region, because in Transnistrian region, even we don't have control, constitutional authorities don't control this territory.
Right.
We have thousands and hundred thousands of people who have Moldovan citizenship. So these people have right to vote. And in 2009, we tried to monitor how these people have possibilities to be informed about elections in Moldova, how they can possibility to participate in political life in Moldova.
Right. So real quick, so when
and
you
how they will vote in the election day.
So when you talk about monitoring elections in Transnistria, you're talking about monitoring Moldovan elections in Transnistria.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
I mean, so
yes, because in Transnistria they have local elections,
right. So they,
but also Russian Federation organized elections in Transnistria.
Because because they have a president and they have a government system.
Yeah, this is a.
So they have like their own elections, which they'll organize, but you don't monitor those.
No.
So
no,
you're
nobody monitor these elections because they are not recognized, and nobody recognizes their elections results.
So okay, so the one way that Moldova authorities do connect with Transnistrians are through election processes.
Yes.
So this last election, were there ballot boxes in Transnistria?
No, in this side of the river. I mean, in the territory which are under the control of constitutional authorities. But people travel to these polling stations, to these localities, and they vote for Moldovan elections. So for us, it was important, very important, to understand if their rights are respected, if they can possibilities to be informed and to participate and to make conscient vote.
Right, on their own
yes.
desire or whatever.
Because during the elections organized by Russia, in Transnistria, Russian political parties organize campaigns, debates. They go door to door in different localities. They have meetings. They have advertising, political advertising, electoral campaigns. Propaganda. Also, media also is very involved in Transnistria during elections, Russian elections. When we have Moldovan elections, these all elements are absent. So from this point of view, I think that we need to insist.
Wait, you're saying in Moldova?
Yes.
There's no advertising for elections?
No.
Well, there are posters of candidates.
Very few, and probably only political parties or candidates who have some deals, agreements, other agreements with local administration, de facto administration from Transnistria.
Yeah, it was just over a year ago.
By the way, we can speak about an example from last year, during this year.
The parliamentary election. I was going to say, I arrived in Moldova for just about a year ago, and it was during the parliamentary elections. And it was kind of an exciting, I didn't know, I mean, when I first arrived, and then I left, and I've now come back. And it was, so it was an interesting time here, during the parliamentary elections.
For your audience, during these elections, from Transnistrian region was organized transport for people to vote in Chisinau and other regions of Moldova, to the polling stations. And according to some investigations, all of them was paid $20 for vote.
For the voting?
Yeah.
In Moldova, or are we talking about the
and about
Transnistria?
40,000 people voted.
Are you, all for everyone, or are you talking about the Transnistrian? Are you still specifically on the Transnistrian?
No. We changed also the electoral system now,
Mhm.
and we have now circumscripții. I don't know in English. The regional.
You have regional ballot boxes. Regional.
No, country is separated now in regions,
Mhm.
and for each region we have one candidate.
Okay, for the parliament.
Yeah, and for Transnistria we have two members of a parliament, which are elected by people from Transnistria.
Oh, so within the Moldovan parliament there are two members from Transnistria?
Yes.
So I didn't know. That's interesting.
Now, from this year.
Oh, it was just this year that started?
Yes.
Okay.
According to new electoral system, we have two members of a parliament voted by population and citizens from Transnistria.
That's an interesting development.
Yes.
How about Gagauzia? Do they have just one, or
Also two.
also two?
Also two.
Okay, well, no, that's interesting. That's an interesting note. So yeah,
Separate subject.
yeah, it's like all of a sudden I want to explore that a little bit more, because that is an interesting integration. You know, it's kind of, it shows that they are now engaging directly with, you know.
It's difficult to say this is an integration. I will say is a game. Is a game between some political parties.
So the socialists, I don't want to say won big in the recent elections, but to a certain degree, when you know, the Socialist Party, I think, did do well this election. Do you think their involvement had an influence on that?
In Transnistria?
Oh no, in Moldova.
Elections?
Right, with the recent like mayor and like the new changes within the party. I mean,
no, we monitor elections,
yeah.
and we have reports. There are the same, practically, we can say the same problems. We identified the same problems like before, but I cannot say what you mentioned.
Okay.
There are no very important and no very serious problems like you mentioned.
Okay. Well, and it's very and this is new. Them being in the parliament, this is their first year.
Yeah.
So I mean, it'd be just interesting to see how things develop over the next few years, and how, if that affects relations at all.
No, the problem now is that we have three forces, political forces in the parliament, which can play very interesting games. And we saw the first act of this game.
The censure, or what was the first act of the game?
When two of them made a coalition.
Oh yes.
And now they cancel this coalition, and the other two.
It's been kind of So I arrived during parliamentary elections last year, and then I just arrived for this new round of elections and stuff. So it's like every time I come to Moldova, it's a very interesting time in politics. I don't time it like that. Hopefully, I'm not impacting. No, okay. So your election processes, just to kind of, for me to gain a better understanding of what you do in your election monitoring. Like I'm kind of familiar with, say, like the OSCE and how they like monitor elections. Do you guys do similar activities? Like you stand
Yes.
at the,
Yes.
you kind of stand at the voting stations and.
We cover all polling stations from our country. So we have about 2,000 monitors during the election day. So in each polling station from Moldova, we have at least one person. Also, we have for 3 months, about 3 months, we have for each region, for each territorial administrative unit of the country, rayon, one long-term observer, LTO.
So you have long-term or short-term observers?
Yes.
I'm trying to picture a polling station. Are there like, do all the observers like hang out together at the?
And we have methodology, and we train them to respect this methodology. And according to this methodology, we collect all information. We have an analytic team.
Yes.
And all these products are presented by reports. about
Right.
reports.
Okay, yeah, that's actually something I did want to ask you about. PromoLex, generally, you guys, I kind of, I've visited your website several times, and we've talked before, and I do notice you guys publish your own reports, or do you do that in cooperation with like is it the EC, the European Court of Human Rights? Do you do that participation with an international organization, or are those mostly your?
No. In the first program, human rights program,
Yes.
I mentioned that we do strategic litigation. So we identify cases which can, through our participation and our involvement, we can change the situation, we can change the legislation, we can change the legal practices in the country.
So you engage with the government?
Yes,
in
we
litigation.
go to the authorities. If they refuse or they don't understand the problem, we go to the court. We obtain the positive, if we obtain the positive result. So we win, if you win the case in the court.
Mm-hmm.
With this decision, we push pressure on the government to change the legislation or the practice. The same we do regarding Transnistria. At the moment, we have about 90 victories
Oh, 90 victories.
at the European Court of Human Rights.
How many?
90 decisions.
Okay.
51 from them are from Transnistria or regarding human rights problems in Transnistria.
So you've changed the legislation within Transnistria?
Now, the aim regarding Transnistria is to show the problem and to insist on international level to make all of them, national authorities, but also international actors, to understand that in this territory we have people who have human beings, who have the same rights like me and you.
Mm-hmm.
And for them it's very important to create these instruments, effective, efficient instruments to be and to protect people from this territory. Because at the moment they don't have some access to some efficient instruments.
Okay, so let's come back to publications in just a second, because you touched on another interesting topic. So in your engagement with the Transnistrian government and legislature and the judiciary, I mean, a lot of people wonder, because this is a frozen conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people in the world view this as a frozen conflict. That's a common reference,
Mm-hmm.
commonly referenced. So through reinforcing I see a reinforcement of their government, while I think you're helping people, and I think is probably good for that community. Will that slow? I mean, so what do you see the future? And this is kind of a big question. How do you see the future of Moldovan Transnistrian relationship? Because if they're not going to integrate systems, Transnistria is building autonomy. Which, I mean, I'm more objective because I kind of just research it. But I'm just curious, in your view, like if you're supporting their autonomy, do you think that works with the peace building process?
Look, in Moldova we have a unique situation.
Mm-hmm.
Moldova is a very small country, very small territory.
Yes.
But on this small territory we have 3 armies.
3 armies.
And plus peacekeeper format.
I was going to ask if that was one of them. So you
Yeah.
have 3 and the peacekeeping?
Yes, we have constitutional army, constitutional forces.
Mm.
We have unconstitutional forces, separatist paramilitary units,
Yes.
yeah, also military units, very, very, very strong.
Okay, yes.
Russian army,
Within Transnistria?
yes, or it's a Russian military army,
Right.
which stay in Transnistria, and authorities try to convince Russia to withdraw, but they refuse.
Yeah.
And also, as I mentioned, we have peacekeeper, so-called peacekeeper format.
Mm-hmm. Which is originally, now they used to all be Russian, but now I've heard that they're more mixed now. There's like
It's
a couple
mixed Moldovan soldiers, Transnistrian soldiers.
maybe in Belgium?
No,
but
and Russians.
and Russians.
Again.
I heard that there's actually
Yes.
some.
It's very strange, but this is a problem of our authorities, because they are not capable to work on national but also international level to make people understand what is this, how wrong is this format, and how inefficient is this format.
Mhm. Okay. So just if you could just briefly touch on, so autonomy is good for Transnistria because it helps promote
But-
your aim of human rights.
But they are not agree with the autonomy. They just ask and let's say fight for independence.
Okay, but you've changed their courts, so they do
No.
allow you to influence them
No.
in a positive way.
For me, and for my colleagues, our aim is not to solve the conflict and Transnistrian
human
conflict.
rights.
Yes, for us is to protect or to defend human rights.
Right.
And when victim come to us with the problem,
Mhm.
we try to see how we can help him. And if his problem can be solved on the local level using local de facto or not de facto, I don't know, courts and legislation, we apply. We
Okay.
just
No, I understand. It's just, it seems like in doing that, I guess there's just that divide. In my mind, I'm still thinking, is autonomy best for the overall peacekeeping process? Or, you would think assimilation would be best, but perhaps autonomy works equally well in preserving.
this is a political aspect and very complex.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's very
Yeah.
complex. That's why I'm asking you, because I don't know.
It's very complex, and for us, it's very important, first of all, to have rights,
Mhm. Yes.
guarantees for human rights in this territory, because this is not a property of group of person. Yeah,
Mhm.
they practically don't allow people to monitor the situation in Transnistria. Even we, from 2015, don't have access in Transnistria.
Mhm.
Only because we go to European Court, only because we defend and promote human rights.
So they've recently restricted your access to.
Yeah, and from 2015 we don't have access. Now, okay, for us it's very difficult to work and to monitor the situation from the distance, but we hope national and international actors will help us to solve this problem.
Okay. So continuing on, I mean, there's a lot there. We could probably keep talking about various aspects of that, but I know you have an event here before too long. I did want to ask you, with kind of the new shifts in the government, I know there's this law that's been proposed within the government that may limit international funding for civil society organizations that kind of engage in some of the activity that you guys kind of do. And I don't know if you guys will be directly affected. And it kind of depends on, where these organizations, where nonprofit organizations, non-governmental NGOs get their funds from. Do you have any opinion, or do you have any idea about that?
This is a phenomena in our region.
Yes.
We know the situation in Hungary, with, some elements in Poland, in other countries. More and more discussions on this issue. Also in Moldova, at least last year, politicians started to speak about this, but they refused to continue. First of all, because Moldova is very very much depend on European partnership, and we are member of this
Right.
Eastern Partnership, and we signed with Europe association agreement. But what we see at the moment in the political program of the new government, they included a moment about a limitation of political engagement or involvement of the civil society.
Right.
We will see. We hope that this will not mean what you mentioned. I hope this not mean the copy of the situation and the problems which we have in Russia, first of all, because in Russia we have law on foreign agents, where civil society is persecuted and they don't have possibilities to work and to speak free about democracy, human rights, and other aspects.
Okay, 2 quick questions. So this law seems to be aimed at Western funders, but I've heard that in here in Moldova, there's also a lot of Russian funding for like.
Mhm.
So I mean, this law wouldn't just affect
Yes,
funds
but
coming from the West; it would also affect funds coming from the
yes,
East.
but this law will affect first of all mm, organizations who receive funds from Western partners.
Oh, it is. So it is
Because
specifically aimed at the.
because this funds and this support is very transparent on the competition basis.
Okay.
The funds which are used by, let's say, pro-Russian NGOs or different organizations which are not very open and visible and so on, they will continue to receive.
So these
because
finances are just harder to monitor.
they will harm for real NGOs, for real civil society.
Okay. All right, and the second question there I had was about foreign agents. This is something that I recently kind of wanted to touch on. I was kind of looking at, because I read in, I still check in with my media back home, and I recently read an article saying that Russia was thinking about applying that foreign agent law not only to organizations but individuals.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was interesting. So are you familiar with that? Is that like is that a big issue? I mean, if somebody's a,
Yes, it's very, very serious.
how does it limit
This
one's
is-
activity? Like if you're an organization,
This is an instrument
okay,
which used by authorities to sanction, to punish, to to sanction and punish people which are not in the line with your opinion, or political opinion, public opinion, or first of all official.
so
opinion.
it would limit access to funds. I mean, I'm not sure how it affects them, like an organization though. I mean,
If we speak about NGOs, this means a lot of controls from fiscal, from financial bodies, state bodies. If we speak about individuals, this means persecution from police, prosecutors, and other.
so they can kind of just monitor you and.
Yeah. This is instrument to punish or to harass people.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know the states have similar laws for other international. I mean, this isn't like a completely uncommon law. It's just it's interesting. I just read this article recently on it, so I wanted to follow up with you on that since it seems like you knew something about that. All right, so moving into just, I have a last question. I know you are coming out with a publication. You may have an event later tonight. You have an event later tonight, I think, on that. Could you, what is this new publication?
We accepted to collaborate with our colleagues from Armenia and Ukraine just to research how the presence of Russian army in our countries influence or which impact have this presence of Russian army on human rights.
Okay.
And for Moldova it's very important to understand how this presence of Russian army, of foreign troops influence the situation of human rights, first of all in Transnistria, but also the political processes regarding reintegration of the country.
Right, and this is that's an interesting topic too. I mean, one thing that I've not studied, but I've kind of read about is how militaries affect civilian populations. I mean, the U.S. has a very big military presence in the world. And so what did your findings suggest, or do you want
First
to?
of all, I mentioned we have three forces, three different forces in our small country.
The U.S. is not one of them, though. Right?
But two of them, yes, of course, you are lucky. And two of them are under any kind of control, any kind of monitoring. We don't know what the real situation in these units, in these military units of Transnistria. Sometimes some recruits, some soldiers from Transnistria army escape, and they run
To Moldova?
To Moldova, in Chisinau. And we have at least 4 victims, which we represented to European Court and in front of national authorities.
And what were their claims?
And they accuse, different problems which happened in these units. First of all, torture, and many other problems regarding corruption, money.
Right. Well, torture is a broad term, so I don't want to kind of throw that out there. I don't know if you want to define.
From Soviet Union, from Soviet Army, we have the term dedovshchina, the relations between older soldiers and younger.
Well, I mean, in the U.S. military, we have hazing. You know, even in colleges, we have hazing. I mean, I don't know, and which could be considered like torturous. I don't know.
No, it's kind of torture.
But I mean, so I don't know how.
And the responsibility is on the state.
Okay.
On the because people stay in these units, and these units are not public or private.
Mm.
They are state units.
Okay.
So, human rights
Mm-hmm.
are affected by the presence of the Russian army. First of all, because of this kind of cases, but also Russian army in Transnistria provide sometimes recruitment, recruit campaigns, and we don't know the real situation because practically today Russia can provide citizenship for all people from Transnistria.
Oh, did they do that?
Yes, and now at the moment there are figures of Russian army, of Russian soldiers' presence in Transnistria.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know.
Right. I mean, from what I understand, the number of Russian military has remained the same in Transnistria almost.
No,
like 233 or something.
Officially, but unofficially, I mentioned everybody from Transnistria can receive a Russian passport.
Yeah.
So we can speak about hundred thousands of potential military.
Well, are you monitoring the population of Transnistria, or is it possible to know what the?
No, it's impossible.
Because I mean.
No, it's not public and official information.
Well, and I do understand. I mean, I've heard that there's no airports in Transnistria, right? So
Yes.
there is one.
No.
Right. So everybody comes in through Moldova. So I mean, you almost have to. If you fly in, you have to pretty much come in,
Mm-hmm.
or from Ukraine.
Ukraine, Moldova.
So I mean, is Ukraine border easier?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the nearest airport on the Ukraine?
Odessa.
I didn't even,
Odessa.
Odessa. Yeah. Okay. Well, I wish you luck this evening with your later events related to your publication, and I want to thank you for your time speaking with me tonight.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.